9.
You're listening to the Radio Wammo Breakfast, only on Kiwi.
Well, a think tank report on sustainability has been released last week here in New Zealand, and it calls for a radical overhaul of economic and environmental policies and practices to avoid a catastrophic future for the country. The paper was put together by Sustainable Aotearoa New Zealand and presents a range of scenarios, but warns that mistaken decisions and delays could lead to confusion and hardship in New Zealand. Basically, they got together a bunch of smart minds in New Zealand around a round table and sussed out, well, these the various things that could happen if New Zealand was sustainable, wasn't sustainable, and what New Zealand would in fact look like under these various scenarios. Dr. Wayne Cartwright from the Sustainable Aotearoa New Zealand, also he's a Professor of Strategic Management in the Department of International Business at the University of Auckland. He was the editor of this paper, and he joins us on the line this morning. Good morning to you, Dr. Wayne Cartwright.
Good morning.
Good to have you on. Now, I've had a read of the paper, and I must say I was alarmed, to say the least, about the various options for New Zealand and what could possibly happen. Now you managed to get together a bunch of I guess free thinking individuals here in New Zealand to figure out how our future looks.
Yes, it was a think tank. We had about 30 people actually in 3 separate sessions, extending in total over 5 days. Then we took it to a full-day workshop of 100 people in total. Then 12 of us got together to actually write the bits of the publication and did a comment on it. And finally, we sent it out to 8 international people with some standing in this field to have it reviewed. So quite a number of people have been involved.
And that one of the main points the paper seems to get across is that currently in New Zealand we don't have a great understanding of what sustainability actually means.
We think that is so. We have some substantial knowledge of what it means to improve the environment. So there's been a lot of work on improving the environment, people being trained to manage their waste and so forth. But that is not the same thing at all as being sustainable. And one of the concerns that we have is that the attention that people are giving to being more careful with the environment, including the emission of CO2, may be interpreted to be all that needs to be done. And in fact, are you there?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, good. You were saying our definition of sustainability is probably quite weak.
Yes, it is. It is weak because we tend to think of sustainability, if we use the word at all, as meaning doing certain things that are helpful to the environment, such as reducing CO2 emissions, which is very much in the news right now. Now, that is a helpful thing to do, no doubt about it, as are a lot of other activities such as more careful management of waste and so on. But those actions in themselves do not result in a sustainable approach to human living. It involves much more than that.
Do you think some of those moves that we're currently making do less harm, but they aren't exactly sustainable?
That's exactly right. They do less harm, they do some good, but the move towards being what we call strongly sustainable will require some fundamental shifts in, well, frankly, what we think life is all about.
Right.
And in particular, the way in which we think economic activity fits into our lives.
These sound really like the big questions. I mean, these sound like revolutionary thoughts.
They're certainly very big questions. I wouldn't use the term revolutionary. I don't think that's the nature of change that needs to take place. But the purpose of the work that we've done is to raise awareness of people, to encourage debate about these issues, so that in due course, and pretty urgently, in fact, people in New Zealand, or the general public, what we would call civil society, will see that change has to come. We expect that change will create quite a bit of disruption, really, because we're upsetting the status quo quite a lot. But we don't see it as being revolutionary. It's just something that will need to happen, and people will see that, and away it will go.
Steve, one thing that seems to be inbred into human nature is that we're more reactionary as opposed to thinking about the future and planning for it. So we'd rather react to adverse effects from the environment that is happening to civilization as opposed to actually preventing it in the first place.
Yeah. This is certainly a concern that we have. We would hope that people can take on board information of the kind that we've prepared so that they can anticipate change and move ahead of time. Unfortunately, if that doesn't happen, adverse conditions will come through. What we call the drivers of global change are there right now, and of course New Zealand is only a very small part of that, but these are going to occur whether people are ready or not. We suggest that as we go forward, it's going to be necessary to make these adjustments, and from that will come the realisation that a more sustainable approach to human living is really required.
One of the things the paper is at pains to point out when it talks about its definition of sustainability is this existence of a biosphere and humans' role within the biosphere as opposed to being outside of it.
Yeah, there has been a common view, hasn't there, that human beings are somehow separate to nature, are separate to ecological systems. But we're not. So the science of it is very clear. All of human activity is a part of nature. It's a part of ecological activity, and we need to act in a way so that the part of nature that we represent does not destroy other parts of nature that we ourselves actually rely upon. Yeah.
It seems as though just in the past couple of years that the political climate has shifted even more further away from these ideas, though. It seems as though New Zealanders aren't really ready to accept our role in climate change and our effect on the environment.
Certainly the shift of government has tended to move us away from the ideas that we are proposing. We see that as unfortunate. I suppose there's another way of looking at it, that the rather foolish policies that are being introduced at the present time will only move us faster towards difficult times due to environmental unsustainability, and that may hasten the changes that need to be made. It's an unfortunate fact, as you said, that human beings may have to suffer some adversity before they see the need to change. We can only hope that will happen before major adverse events happen.
I know it's a hard sort of thing to sum up, but the paper looks at the future of New Zealand through the eyes of a future person. And looks at sort of daily life and what it's like for that person under a sustainable New Zealand, so an optimistic future. Briefly, just for the average New Zealander, what do you predict for an environment that is sustainable?
Well, for a start, economic activity of the material kind, that is to say, our material consumption will have to drop considerably. So the way in which we associate material consumption with happiness, we've got to break that sort of addiction and realise that we can live very fulfilling and satisfying lives in a number of other ways as well, without having to buy stuff all the time, which is subsequently often thrown away quite soon. So that's a major change. We will have much more vibrant and energetic community life. We will be more self-sufficient within the country, but also within regions of the country. Of course, there will still be quite a lot of international trade, as well as movement of products and goods around in New Zealand as well. But there'll be a much higher level of local self-sufficiency, particularly with respect to food production. And of course, we can see some of those shifts occurring already.
Absolutely. I've got my veggie patch planted. Do you?
Yeah.
Dr. Wayne Cartwright, thanks so much for telling us about the paper, and I hope that more people go and read it. It's up on phase2.org, which is quite an easy web address to remember, phase2.org. If you can't remember that, type in SANZ into Google. Dr. Wayne Cartwright, editor of the think tank paper, thanks so much for chatting to us today about it.
Thank you.